Yeah, welcome to episode 26. Welcome, General Flynn.
This is great. Is that how you talk, actually?
Yeah, not really.
That's not how you talk.
Only to my wife at night.
Shit, it's not how you talk.
That's how I get my wife going at night.
I call out a lot of people. I'm calling out the President of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Calling out the Vice President of the United States of America, current and past. I went into the White House as a Democrat. I was vetted as one of the final four candidates for Vice President as a Democrat because I didn't give a shit about politics. I cared about the country. And I just felt like Trump was the guy. We now are in this world of narrative assassination or assassination by narrative. We can sort of fight through this and we can survive this messy situation, this messy period of history that we're in, if we come together. There is a darkness, there's an evil that permeates certainly the political system of our country, and it is so corrupt. Military-industrial complex now has other elements, other arms, if you will, or other appendages. That really came out of 9/11. On the 10th of September of 2001, the government was probably 1/5 the size it is now, and it grew by 5 times since 9/11. You know, black budget, black programs. I don't know why they don't call it the white program.
How familiar was gotta call it the black program.
Gotta call it the black program.
How familiar was Trump with this type of business?
He wasn't familiar. He didn't know anything about
familiar.
it. Didn't know anything about it.
You were in a great position to expose all that. Do you think that's the reason why they went after you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like him or not, you know, whether you think Orange Man is bad or not, you know, Orange Man is authentic. And the one thing that Orange Man loves is he loves his country. And I could tell that from the second I met him.
So Trump asked you to resign?
Yeah.
Do you have any resentment towards Trump for him even asking you to
You know,
resign?
I did initially.
Yeah. Welcome to episode 26. Got a damn good man. We got a Patriot in the house, General Flynn. Yeah. Before we get to General Flynn, got to talk to y'all about our sponsor, Optimal Human. Yeah, it's got over 90 powerful ingredients. It's good for the heart, lungs, for your pee-pee, and if you're a woman, it's good for the gas. And now you can try it for free. Go to optimalhuman.com/Hodgetwins to get your free kit today. Let's get to the general. Yeah, welcome to episode 26 to our podcast. Welcome, General Flynn.
You guys, this is great. Is that how you talk, actually?
Yeah, not really.
That's not how you talk.
Only to my wife at night.
Shit, it's not how you talk.
That's how I get my wife going at night. I said, yeah.
I haven't met your wife, but I bet you she'd be scared of that.
Yeah. No, actually, she scares me.
Oh, my God. You guys, make sure that she checks this out, edits this before you guys go online.
Right.
Man.
Oh, she gave up a long time, General.
Edit your
I
ass.
said, General, just don't watch the videos. Don't watch the shows. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, in preparation for this show, we watched your documentary, Flynn. Yeah, it was an amazing movie. That was an eye-opening experience. Yeah. Everything made sense. Like, I remember what happened on January 6th, the debacle. That that was like that was probably one of the worst mistakes Trump ever made during his presidency. And I seen some things that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like I saw Pence and people was holding up signs saying "Hang Mike Pence." I was like, "Wow, these guys are evil and mean." What's going on? What's going on? And then after I saw your documentary. Everything makes sense. Yeah, why are they saying that?
Yeah, it comes to light. I mean, So, first of all, the documentary, it's called Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. And I won't get into the weeds of getting that thing so I could put it out publicly because I call out a lot of people. I'm calling out the President of the United States of America, calling out the Vice President of the United States of America, current and past. And I call out other people who are some serious people in the world of politics, course, and where we're at today in this country. So the story is really I think it's an inspiring story of survival. People that watch it, and it's been watched quite a bit, which I really am humbled by. It's so thankful for guys like you to watch it and talk about it here, and it's great being in studio with you all.
General, I think this movie not only Republicans should watch. I think every American, regardless of your political ideology, everybody should see that movie.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that you learn in the movie is that my family, we grew up in a big family. My father was a sergeant in the Army, World War II in Korea, and very small house. Very tight knit family,
and Kennedy Democrats,
and we were Democrats,
right?
And I, like I say in the film, I went into the White House as a Democrat. Right. You know, I was looked at, vetted before the Republican convention of 2016 as one of the final 4 candidates for vice president as a Democrat. You know,
that's
like
unheard of.
No, like I say in the movie, because I didn't give a shit about politics. I cared about the country, and I saw that the country was going in a direction that frankly. And I just felt like Trump was the guy. You know, I felt like we were coming off the rails, and so Trump was the guy to get us back on the rails. But what people in this country have to understand is that in order for us to stay on the rails, because he's one man, he's going to be here for only a short period of time.
Right.
In terms of sort of the historical dimensions, and we're going to need to come together, and that's why, as a former Democrat, I mean, I moved and I changed parties, but that's Mox Nix. My attitude has not changed.
You haven't changed.
I haven't changed one bit. So the movie really, it talks about, and it takes the viewers back in time, because the first probably third to a half of the movie gets into a little bit of my military backgrounds and experiences and some of the reasons why I got to where I got.
Right.
And this idea about endless wars. And endless wars, where I raised the idea, we show President Eisenhower giving the warning. He talks about that. We talk about that in the film. And then we talk about the assassinations of the 1960s, both Kennedy's brothers, right? John and Robert, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King.
Right.
And I really do point to our government.
Right.
So I don't point to Lee Harvey Oswald, right? I mean, I point to our government and the fact that if you even back then, if you took on elements of the government, those elements, in this case the CIA, was going to come after you, and certainly the FBI too. I think in the realm of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. So then we lay this out, and I won't get into too much of the details, because I do believe when people see it, you can think people can think what they want about me, but when you see it, you're going to be blown away by, and most people that come to me, like we just came up out of California here to visit you guys. We had, 450, 500 people, and universally they come up to me and they say, I followed your story, but I just didn't know. I didn't realize it was this bad.
Exactly how I felt.
Yeah. I mean, because you guys probably paid attention to what was happening, and a lot of people did, and they thought, they got this headline, that headline. But we now are in this world of and I describe it a bit in the movie, this idea of narrative assassination or assassination by narrative. Although we now have moved back to physical assassination. The shot, or shots that were just taken at President Trump here recently. So we're in this world right now, and the way that we sort of, me as a vessel to convey this message of the challenges that our nation faces, we can sort of fight through this, and we can survive this messy situation, this messy period of history that we're in, if we come together.
Right.
And I do believe, that we have to drive out this darkness that exists over certainly the United States of America. I believe it's more universal. It's more global. Right. Because there is a global alliance that has formed against the United States of America. But there is a darkness. There's an evil that permeates certainly the political system of our country. I mean, it's so corrupt.
Yeah.
Corrupt.
Let me say this. I thought what was happening to Trump was like an anomaly, the way he's been politically persecuted. But in your movie, it shows this has been going on for decades. Like, you speak of those assassinations with Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, JFK, RFK. I mean, what was it, RFK or JFK?
Both of them, JFK and RFK.
Yeah, it was all based around the military-industrial complex.
Yeah,
you think?
So in the late 50s, and Eisenhower, became the president. He was the president for 8 years, 2 terms. Fascinating story about Eisenhower and the people that were around him, and how the CIA came and morphed from OSS into the CIA, and then there was a takeover of the government to a degree. I mean, I'm generalizing here a little bit, but maybe because I'm a general, but I'm just when we look at that, so Eisenhower, I think it was like 3 days before he gave up power of the presidency. In his final speech, he gave this sort of dire warning. It wasn't if you read the whole speech, there's some optimism there, but it was this dire warning about this military-industrial complex. And at that time, at I think it was 61 or 62, at that time the complex was not that developed. It began, and it was starting to really take shape and grab hold of the government, but it wasn't that developed. Now, when we look at what we all kind of woke up here in the last couple of years and said, "Oh my God, what the heck is going on here?" And now that military-industrial complex now has other elements, other arms, if you will, or other appendages, and it's like there's a security state complex, and that's the growth of the intelligence community, which I'm very familiar with, and that really came out of 9/11. So, on the 10th of September of 2001. The government was probably 1/5 the size it is now, and it grew by 5 times since 9/11. I mean, it's just incredible growth. One of those areas of growth was the intelligence community. So now we have 17, agencies of the intelligence community. Wow. I mean, it's like you walk, you can't, swing a dead cat, right, and not hit one of them. And so what they've done is they are like, I don't know, they're like a cancer that has bled or grown into our entire government structure, every single element of our government. And so that security state complex, well, now we also have what we learned from the Twitter files, which is really important. A couple of great journalists who were given access, Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi, and they broke the Twittergate files, right? The censorship. And when we saw that, and we started to examine that, now you have this censorship complex, and the censorship complex is this world of cyber, right? So you got the National Security Agency, which is a big component of the U.S. intelligence community, and then you've got this organization called CISA. It's a cyber information and security agency within the department. Within the executive branch of the government. The FBI has a giant cyber operation. CIA has a giant cyber operation. So now they can take this, and they worked really closely with Silicon Valley, the tech titans, right? The Twitter, Facebook, and others. And they created this censorship complex. And you guys, I don't know if you were censored. I think you were, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I know I was. I mean, many people were. And people that listen to this, will know, oh, yeah. So you have these military-industrial complex inside of the Department of Defense now. Each of the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, right? I mean, so they have grown, and they have their own, it's like another amoeba that's grown, like another arm that's grown out of a body, and each of the services have an ungodly amount of power. And when you look at Washington, D.C., so let's just physically look at Washington, D.C., there's essentially 10 counties that surround it. So the wealthiest counties in the country,
Loudoun County,
are right there. Yeah, they're right around Washington, D.C. And you say to yourself, well, how can this be, right? Why don't we share in this wealth? There are all these people that want to share the wealth, right? No, they don't want to share the wealth. There's no wealth being shared. So you give your money to to Uncle Sam, and sadly, it ain't even Uncle Sam anymore. It's Uncle Nancy or Aunt Nancy, So you give your money to the government, they take it, and they're giving it to many other countries on the planet, probably damn near every country on the planet. Most people don't know that, some type of funds. And so we give money away, But a lot of that money finds its way back, right back into those complexes that I just talked about. Okay? So if I a congressional bill, we give out let's say $100 million. Okay? $100 million. Your audience is going to go, damn, $100 million, that's a lot of money. It's a shitload of money. But $100 million to a government that's, that has a budget. I mean, our Defense Department has, we're looking at $1 trillion just for the Defense Department. So our budgets are unbelievable. So $100 million contract that's let for some type of weapon system. Let's just say one weapon system. A lot of that money it'll be granted to Lockheed Martin. So let's say Lockheed, or just as an example, using a company like that, they get the contract to build an airplane. Now what happens is every member of Congress, the Senate and the House, they start to make sure that a little piece of that comes back, right? And it's not so much that they're creating jobs, because we don't manufacture that much stuff in this country anymore. So it's not like a lot of that's coming back into their districts. You really follow the flow of $1 of one of those dollars that's part of that $100 million, and you see that, okay, so what's this company right here? And who owns it? Oh, that's owned by your nephew, or that's owned by your friend. Okay? And what do they make? And what does that have to do with that aircraft that's being built? Nothing. It has nothing to do with it. So when it all flows back and you really start to dig in and you analyze where this money's flowing, you say to yourself, man, we're being ripped off. They're just, and because the American people, what we're supposed to do in this system of government and a constitutional republic, we're supposed to trust these people. We sit there and we vote for them. They come in and you meet a congressman, you meet one of these people, even local. You meet one of these people and they're like, and you think, oh, he seems like a good guy. He seems like a great guy. Well, how long you been in Congress? 20 years, 12 years. It's like, and you, what did you do before you went in? Nothing. Yeah, that's a good answer, right? Yeah. I mean, what'd you do? Well, I was a small town. I sold some real estate, or I was a small town lawyer, or what? Okay, and so what was your income then? Well, I was maybe they were lucky and they're making $150,000.
These people probably had a paper route.
And now now they have, now you're looking at somebody, their net worth is like a couple of $1 million or more. And you say to yourself, okay, this is not right. I mean, we had, our country was not designed to create a political class. What we really wanted was people who wanted to serve the country, do the best that they could, and then get the hell out of Dodge and go back and do something else, right? Be something else for other people back in your hometown or whatever you wanted to do, and get out of there. Serve for a period of time. So
when Trump chose you to be his head of intelligence, you were in a great position to expose all that. Do you think that's the reason why they went after you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of the, and I talk about this in the movie, if you remember in the movie, I say that I called for a briefing. So I called for a briefing, right? The first time was before we went into the White House, because this was an area that I was very familiar with. And this is an area that has, an incredible budget that nobody knows about. It's an off the books, like you have two sets of books, right? So if you got two sets of books, you'd be like the mafia. You'd be like a criminal enterprise. You got your books that you want everybody to see, and then you got your own set of books where you keep that off because you're laundering money back into yourself. Well, the government kind of does that with these programs, and I am aware of them. And there are people that are in Congress that are supposed to approve these things on an annual basis that have the right clearances. You have something called the Gang of Eight. People can go look up who's in the Gang of Eight. But the fact that they call them a gang, I mean, come on.
Right.
So, and these are like serious people in our government.
Yeah.
So that budget is a huge budget. I mean, it gets close to the T level. And it's seriously corrupt. I mean, seriously corrupt. It is... there are programs there that are no longer valid. They're just not valid anymore. But the money still flows because nobody questions it.
Right. Okay? So now people's getting money on the back end. Why would they question?
And it's they call it the black budget, black programs. I don't know why they don't call it the white program.
How familiar was Gotta call it the black program.
Gotta call it the black program.
How familiar was Trump with this type of business?
He wasn't familiar. He didn't know anything about
familiar.
it. Didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Mike Pence didn't really know anything about it either because he and I sat in that meeting. He didn't know squat
But
about
you
it.
knew about it.
I knew about it because as having run one of the largest intel agencies in the world, and some of those programs, I was aware of. Not all of them, because as the national security advisor, you're privy to everything. I mean, I was read on to the Trump sitting right next to me. And on the day that we got read on to the nuclear codes and the whole nuclear football and the whole process, and I was generally aware of that because of a job that I had in the Pentagon prior as the senior intel officer on the Joint Staff. So I had some knowledge of the system and the processes. But now I'm read into that too, right? So, so when they were briefing me and the incoming vice president, these are the top guys in the CIA, as I call out in the film, and they didn't have the answers. I mean, I'm like, and what did I want? I mean, so they come in and they give you these big, beautiful charts and this book, and they're laying it out, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so how effective has that program been?
Right.
What has that program done to move the safety and security of the people of this country forward, to protect this country, to raise the prestige of this country?
Right.
And when I asked those questions, they were like, and that's where you got the squirming in the seat. I mean, these are like serious people, top guys in the CIA, and there's only about 4 or 5 of them in that room at that time. And here they're briefing the incoming national security advisor of the United States of America, working directly for the president, and the vice president, incoming vice president of the United States of America. So they didn't have the answers that I wanted, and Pence it was probably the first time he'd ever seen any of this stuff.
You asked, we answered.
Woo! Yeah!
We just started a brand new giveaway. We giving away a Polaris ATV. It's a Sportsman 450. It's got a 500cc engine in it.
That's all kinds of CCs.
That's all kinds of CCs, and it's perfect for working on the farm, doing donuts in the field, or whatever you white people like to do.
Just make sure you don't flip that bitch. Every dollar you spend gets you in it to win.
And our 69 Charger General Lee, and plus $10,000 in cash.
Go to officialhodgetwins.com and get in it today.
Yeah!
No purchase necessary. Board where prohibited. See official rules for details.
Yeah!
Okay.
Yeah, you was appointed by Barack Obama, right?
Twice for Assistant Director of National Intelligence,
So he trusts you.
Yeah, he trusted me enough.
He promoted you.
Yeah, he promoted me. He promoted me, twice, and then you got to get confirmed by the Senate, and I was 100% confirmed. Yeah. In fact, at the end of the movie, if you remember, I'm showing my son a letter that I had gotten from Barack Obama, congratulating me on my service to country, and signed, and then I made the comment, and a year later these bastards got me under investigation. I didn't tell this story in the film, but because I do want to return, just put a bow on this thing about these programs, because I called for it again in the White House when I was there, when we finally went in, literally the first couple of days. So I was like on a mission.
Yeah, you didn't last but 22 days.
No, that's
they
right.
Say you got to go.
And there was a meeting in the Oval Office that was attended by Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Jim Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, Director of the CIA, Brennan, Director of the FBI, Jim Comey, essentially the acting director of the Department of Justice, Sally Yates, the current National Security Advisor under Barack Obama, Susan Rice. Those people and a few other minions were in the Oval Office on the 5th of January, and that's one of the things that in the film, my son Michael, he and I were talking, in the film, and we were talking about what was the most important thing, like what do you remember most about this wall, right? Because we have this timeline, and he says this is the thing that kind of has driven him.
That timeline in that movie is crazy.
It is crazy, and it's real. And so that meeting was the 5th of January, 2017, of course, just prior to Trump coming into office, and after Barack Obama had warned Trump not to hire me.
Right, that's
he hired
weird.
me twice. He hired me twice.
Right.
So and he did that even before all of the craziness about the Russia phone calls. And so they knew that they were going to do something.
Right.
Well, on the 5th of January, they basically conspired to undermine the President of the United States. And during that meeting, and we know this factually from the fight that I got into as I went through this persecution and said, screw this, I'm not taking this anymore, and I'm going to fight back. And then we started to dig our heels in and get evidence. So they now started, I changed lawyers out and the whole thing, and that's all described. But we started to get evidence, and then Bill Barr, the Attorney General, appoints a special counsel. Special counsel digs in and goes, "Oh my God, man, we screwed this guy," and there was no crime committed. We committed the crime, so they dismissed the case. But that meeting on the 5th of January was the meeting that they conspired, that body of those people, those names, to say, we are going to get Flynn and then we're going to get Trump. We have to get Flynn out of the way. And I've told people this, that had I not left the White House, there would have been no Mueller investigation. The Russiagate, I would have killed it because I would have,
right. Yeah.
I was digging in, I'm digging in, and they knew it. And back to this black budget program that exists and still exists. And if you ask Trump about it, he go, I'm aware of some of it. He doesn't know the weeds about it, but he should, especially now that I was going after that first.
Yeah.
And then there was going to be some other things that I was going to do because I had already done those things in the agency that I had led, which is the Defense Intelligence Agency. Immediately going in and starting to reform the organization so it was more functional. It actually did its mission, and started to look at their budget in that particular job. And I called for an audit, which there's no audits done with these organizations.
Right.
And when
that's crazy. And
this is
that's what started all this.
Oh, it started all of it, and now I'm the National Security Advisor. So. Yeah. And, it's like, because people look at, the audience goes, and what's National Security Advisor? Most people don't even know. They don't know what that is.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So the National Security Advisor, you're right there with the president. You're in on all critical decisions that are going to be made for anything. I don't care whether it's food security, water security, foreign policy, war, nuclear, decisions. Every single thing that that a president of the United States is going to make a decision on, the National Security Advisor is right there. And I had that kind of relationship.
He can't function without you.
He can't. So,
and the Democrats didn't want you there.
Democrats didn't want me, and I'm a Democrat.
Yeah, and you're the most knowledgeable man in the government.
Oh yeah, big time. At that time, especially the people in the circle around Trump, and that were coming in to be heads of departments and stuff like that. Yeah. None of these people had this set of experiences that I had.
Right.
That not only were at the very strategic level, the national security level of our country, that I'd already demonstrated an ability to do,
for decades.
And I also had 5 years of combat experience. So I'm not a wallflower, and I'm not just some general where somebody sprinkled fairy dust and poof, you're a general.
Right.
So
you're not a Kamala Harris.
Yeah, right. I've been to Europe, end of the border.
Hey, right. So Trump asked you to resign.
Yeah,
and so do you think if you stayed there, if you didn't resign, you think you could have prevented all this Russiagate, all this stuff?
Yes.
Do you have any resentment towards Trump for him even asking you to resign?
I did initially, and I talk a little bit about this. I make a comment in it about the movie, in the film. I did because when the actual resignation, and if you serve in the military, and I know you did, you can't put yourself between. It's like you got a commander and you got a sergeant major, and you screwed up. So you're trying to play mom off of dad, right? And you try to get between those, then and they're a good team. You're crushed, right? You ain't gonna win that.
They were
that
squeezing
battle.
Trump.
Yeah. So Trump, and the vice president Pence are elected. I'm not. So I saw it from my perspective of, and that's kind of the way it, Trump and I have spoken about it, over time, is that, I wasn't going to put myself in between choose him or me. I'm not elected.
Right.
I was appointed, and I'm also, a military guy who grew up, all I ever wanted to do was to serve, right? And serve, especially serve in the Army. So I understood responsibility. I understand taking responsibility, and I understand self-accountability. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to put myself in between. I'm not going to sit there and go, well, this is bullshit. I mean, we had that, and I described the conversation in the room. And it's really in the film is the first time I've ever talked about that. That inside the Oval Office, that meeting, and it's like I say, those two guys that were in that room to talk to Trump prior, and probably a couple of days prior, Reince Priebus, the chief of staff at the time, and Mike Pence, the duly elected vice president of the United States.
Right.
And so they basically, to me, they teamed up and they got rid of me because I had a great relationship with Trump. And
you helped him get elected.
I worked my ass off for that, man. And, a lot of veterans, we probably got over 20 million veterans in this country, And I remember getting up every single day. We would travel around the country, do 4 or 5.
With Trump.
Oh, with Trump. I would be the guy, all these other political hacks that would be there to kiss his ass, at these various venues. And so then they'd all talk for a couple of hour or two before Trump showed up. And then I'd go out and I'd introduce him. Right. And I'd introduce him and then he'd show up.
And you didn't get paid a dime for that.
Nothing.
Right? Yeah.
Nothing.
The only person that was genuine during that whole process was you.
Yeah. What I would say is that I was honored to be part of something that I thought was monumental for our country, because the one thing that I talk about is this idea that the country, and I felt it then. I felt it in certainly in 2015. I kind of felt it at the tail end of my career, but more so in 2015 when I really started to look at, okay, we're going to get ready to go into another election here. And I had met Hillary Clinton, and she gave me the heebie-jeebies. I mean, I did know. I mean, seriously, it's like you know.
It's like being in a room with a witch, right?
Oh my God, man! You get that, everything's like whoa, and
skin start to crawl.
Everything, crawl right off, right? And so, when Trump decided, I met him a month after he decided, and went down to New York to meet him, and I just felt like, man, this is what the country needed,
right? Yeah.
Because like him or not, whether you think Orange Man is bad or not, Orange Man is authentic. And the one thing that Orange Man loves is he loves his country. And I could tell that from the second I met him.
Right.
And, in the conversations, the early conversations, and then the back and forth that we had for the next couple of months was really, it was honest. And I'm not one of these guys that, I don't give a shit whether you're a king, prince, president, big time, big shot like Trump. I've never been enamored by that kind of stuff,
Right.
And maybe that's the way I grew up, because we were like, you treat people like to be treated kind of thing.
Right.
And that's the way my old man was. So anyway,
Vice President Mike Pence, he didn't fight for you.
Not at all. Oh no. Pence threw me to the wolves.
Yeah. He orchestrated that entire meeting.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely did, because, Pence was part of the establishment.
Right.
Pence was put there as the vice president, handed to Trump. Okay, Now, Trump can say what he wants, but he ain't talking about Pence these days, is he?
Nope. That whole movie changed my opinion of that guy.
Yeah.
I have a lot of resentment for him.
Yeah.
Mike Pence. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not one of these people that's like, I don't have hate in my heart. I just don't. Wasn't raised that way. I was raised to be tough and hold people accountable, because if you did something wrong in my house, you felt it. But to this day, Trump called me up, and I won't throw out the things about the pardons, because I think that's a good part about the movie that a lot of people need to know.
Because
it's like,
part.
Wow, I never wanted to talk about that, because it's like, but now I want people to know that, because that is a very, very tough decision. So Trump calls me up to say, hey, I'm going to give you a pardon, and I talk about that conversation in the film, and it's a good conversation. It's lighthearted,
Right.
But to this day, sitting here with you guys, whatever the date is, in 2024, to this day, Mr. God-like faith man, or whatever you want to call him, total bullshit, has never called me up.
Yeah.
He's never called me up to say, and I fully expected after Trump and I hung up, I fully expected to get the phone to ring and go, General Flynn, we got the Vice President of the United States on the phone. He wants to thank you or congratulate you, right?
Right.
To this day, that man has not called me up to say, Mike, I'm so sorry what happened to you and your family. And to me, that's unforgivable.
Yeah.
And I don't hate the man. I, like I said, I don't hold hate in my heart, but to me, it's unforgivable. I will never. Those are the type of people, because if there's one thing with me, in our family, particularly in our family growing up, particularly my father, but my mother was good too. We developed a sense of loyalty, loyalty to our. I'm one of 9 brothers and sisters. I mean, we would try to kill each other inside of the 1,200 square feet that we had, but when we walked out that door and you messed with one of us, you were going to come after all of us, kind of deal. So, and so there's a sense of loyalty that I have, and I have loyalty because of my service in uniform, and and I was like, and I stayed loyal to Trump. I stayed loyal to. I mean, I could have come out and said, actually, they wanted me. The DOJ wanted me to figure something out. They wanted me to lie about anything.
Yeah,
right.
I
So they got
noticed
him.
that. They used your son as leverage.
Yeah.
So you would cop some kind of plea.
Right.
I mean, the things they did to you, the accusations about you cheating on your wife.
Right.
There had to have been a huge strain on your marriage.
Right. Unbelievable. I mean.
And for them to attack a war hero, a guy who served the country for 20 plus years.
33, almost 34 years, and 5 in combat, and all over the world, and rose to the highest levels of the field that I chose, right?
And they talk about they love our military.
Oh, these people are terrible. And so anyway, on all this stuff, I want people to understand that this film and this story is about America. And it's about, so if I'm a vessel for this scenery of what it is that we're facing, because this is where it began. I mean, it began by taking out a guy, and they use other language, because in a piece of evidence that we got in September or October of 2020, so literally 2 months before the election, we get one other huge piece of evidence from the lead FBI agent by the name of, I'll think about it in a second, but Barnett, okay, Agent Barnett. He was the lead agent for Crossfire Hurricane, and he basically, was being brought under the gun because the Durham investigation was still going on, and he did a deposition type statement, and in it it's 9 pages long. You can find it online. And in it, he basically says we're gonna, the whole thing was get Flynn to get Trump.
Yeah,
he was the lead agent for Crossfire Hurricane. That man picked me up 19 times to drive over to the Mueller team, 19 different times in the time that I was cooperating as a witness for them, right? And every time I went over there, they would try to get me to say something, that would be against Trump. And I'm sitting there going. They'd go, okay, we got a picture of you and this guy together, so tell us about this guy. I was like, when was that, And it would be at some event, and I'd go, there was 3,000 people there. I probably took 500 pictures, And that's, and early on, you kind of just feel like these people, and I don't know how much we can, swear, because I still am a soldier at heart, but I mean, these people are assholes, okay? Yeah. And I mean, seriously, they are really, really bad. And I don't mean to get that way, but I need your audience to know that we are facing evil. These are it's one thing to oppose somebody politically and go, okay. And everybody that goes, well, we'll get them at the elections. Well, if our elections aren't fair, I mean, I've been called every name in the book, one of which is election denier, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't deny that we have elections. I deny that they're fair.
Right.
That's all. And so, all of this, back to this film, all of this is to say, look, number one, watch this thing, because you're gonna watch it and you're gonna go, holy crap, I just didn't know. One of the things that, we talk about this as an intro, but it's not necessarily, it's not in the film itself. But for 2 years, my name was the most Googled name in the world, 2 years in a row. And when you Googled my name, so the way the algorithms are set up by the powers of
you want Google deciding who you are.
No, right. Well, so I'm the most Googled name in the world for 2 years running. So you type in Flynn or General Flynn or Mike Flynn, and it would immediately go to traitor, treason, Putin spy, Russian spy, foreign. I mean, all these really nasty, nasty attacks, right? And that's why I say, now it's all about narratively assassinating somebody.
Right.
That's the world that we live in.
Right.
And in this world of, like we talk about with fifth generation warfare, this is what you're looking at here, if they can see it.
They said Trump scammed the bank out of money. They said he's a rapist.
Right.
And they just found him guilty of 34 felony counts for hush money. I'm like,
That's exactly what they're doing. It's like our CIA, our intelligence agencies are using propaganda against our own citizens.
Right. I mean, there's another great movie, if people can watch, this one's only about an hour. It's called Into the Light. Into the Light. And what you just said is the theme of that 1 hour that people can go and look it up on the internet. Right?
I was recommended it after I saw that movie.
Yeah, Into the Light. And Into the Light talks about the machinery that goes back really to the 50s of propagandizing and projecting how Hollywood and the government wanted to manipulate all of us to start believing certain things, right?
Right.
And to fall for all this craziness that we have fallen for. I mean, COVID was a psyop. COVID was a total psyop. And do you get? I mean, does anybody get the flu anymore? I mean, I just. Right. And I don't want to joke about that because people died because of the results and the consequences of it. Right. But our government and elements within our government, particularly the intelligence community, works directly with the White House, and these things are called findings in some cases, but they are fully approved. They're well aware of it. And when I say they, it's the leadership in the places like the CIA and the leadership in the White House, leadership in the National Security Council, probably in some cases, not all, leadership in the Pentagon, in the Department of Defense, certainly the leadership in the diplomatic community in the State Department, and definitely in the Justice and particularly in the FBI. And so when you have this body, and now you bring together in essentially an interagency coordination team, a cell of a bunch of people like that are all bureaucrats for the most part, few appointed people who are looking and saying, okay, how can we manipulate the American people? Yeah. How can we cause the American people to think a certain way? And then they work, as Tucker's really great in this thing, Tucker Carlson, and how his description of the media. I don't know if you. So that part in the relationship between, organizations of record, Washington Post, New York Times, and others that are working directly with the intelligence community, principally the CIA. So, I mean, these are I'm not making this shit up.
Some of them are still on payroll.
Oh, yeah, no. So many of them are on the payroll.
And all this stuff against Trump, that's a psyop. The 34 felony.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, that particular Judge Marchant in New York, he's not, he didn't allow any of the real evidence to be presented that should have been presented. Now, what's going to happen, I think it's September 18th, if I'm not mistaken, is the sentencing date. So that judge, I believe, is going to put Trump in jail. Really? And I do. I mean, why wouldn't he?
Right.
I mean, Trump's just been, in his court, in front of a jury, has just been convicted of 34, counts. Whether, it's all, to me, it's just more of the same shit, excuse me,
right, that
they're going after this man.
I remember the judge's instructions to the jury before he went to go deliberate. He says, as members of the jury, you don't have to agree with what crime he committed.
Right.
Yeah. That's like when you convict somebody of a crime, everybody has to agree on what that crime was.
Right.
He totally waived all of that.
Yeah. Plus he chunked and he put them in blocks.
Right.
The jury into blocks. You guys focus on these. You focus on. I mean, it's just so many bad things. And in our system of justice, if we if we actually have a fair system, in an appeals process, this thing would be looked at and it would be a joke. But
Trump, these people should be disbarred.
Well, or more. There's
it's actually treason.
It's treason to me because, maybe it's not Marchant so much, but some of these other things that we've been talking about, these people undermined a duly elected president of the United States, not only as he was coming into office after he had been elected, but then they decided to actually do it when he was the president.
Yes. And
that's called treason.
Yeah. You know what's funny? They keep saying Republicans are a threat to democracy.
Yeah. Well, some Republicans are.
Yeah. Pence is one of them, right?
Some Republicans are. Right. One of them is just over in Ukraine the last 24 hours with a stolen valor Democrat, two senators.
Okay? Waltz.
Oh no, not Waltz. I'm talking about guys that are. Waltz is governor of Minnesota. He's got other problems, right?
Right.
But Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal out of Connecticut. Blumenthal, you were a Marine. Blumenthal lied about his service.
Yeah, and a lot of people think this is a Democrat. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. It's everybody.
Yeah, it's not. This is there is such a there's such a strong hold, like a chokehold. Principally in Washington, D.C., but what I think a lot of people have seen, and I've discovered this as I've gone around the country, and I like to go, I like to stop at like gas stations, and I like to go down into churches, and I like to go into go walk the street and go talk to people, grassroots people, and go, so how do you feel? A lot of people feel the same way. This chokehold that we've seen in Washington, D.C. by these corrupt politicians, it actually is starting to permeate down into the local level, down into, district attorneys who they're releasing like murderers and they're throwing, somebody who smoked some pot, into jail or not even that, right? Of somebody who protested at a Planned Parenthood, center. So you protest, you get thrown in jail, you murder. Don't worry, we'll give you, probation for 6 months.
Yeah, what's that happened up in Loudoun County? I think. It was at a school board meeting.
Yeah, it was children
and the parents.
Yeah,
and they called them terrorists.
Well, a young girl was raped, I think, in a bathroom by a kid, another young kid in the school. The school knew about it. The school
transgender, right?
It transgender was part of the whole problem, but a young girl was raped. They ended up moving the child that raped her to another school. They knew about it in the school system. They did it without telling the parent. They find out the blew up in the school board hearing, and the father went to the school board hearing. And, you can imagine. I don't know if you guys get.
Right.
I have kids and I have grandkids, and I would have freaked out. I would have acted just like that dad. I might have even done something worse.
Yeah. Right.
And
so how did the intelligence community get involved with that?
Well, it's not so much that as the down at the local level. What has happened is the intelligence community at the top level works to basically try to control who's ever in power, right? So you got an elected official or a guy like me. So as a military officer, I'm going to be appointed into a job, and I'm only going to be there for a short period of time. In my case, a couple of years. You're typically a commander, or you're in a job for a couple of years. Well, these bureaucrats sit there and they go, okay, this guy thinks he's going to be a tough guy and he's going to come in here and do all these things. We'll just wait him out because we're going to be here for like 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Bureaucrats now, right? And then you get these members of Congress and you get these members of the House or the Senate, and they're there for like 6 years, 12 years, 20 years. Joe Biden's 50 years.
Right.
So you get these people that they forget why they're there. Maybe when they were young and they were full of it, they were like, I'm going to go and I'm going to save the world, right? And then they get there and somebody goes, okay, I can take care. What's your house payment? You got a house here? Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. What's your house payment? You're from what state? Florida or Nevada? I'll take care of that. Don't worry about it. You got kids going to school? In fact, we know you got 3 kids in school, 2 kids in college, or 1 kid getting ready to go. We'll take care of that. You want to, I see that you like boating. I mean, these are the kinds of things that happen. Okay, and that's the corruption, the extortion in many cases, right? And these people, they take it. They absolutely take it. There's very few, probably, maybe this many senators, okay? The fingers on my hand, maybe. And I that's really highballing it to say that there's 5 senators, U.S. senators, that are not compromised, okay? Members of the House, there's very, very few members of the House that aren't compromised. Compromise being either you've done something like I just described and you accepted it, or you got caught doing some other weird stuff, right? Like you got caught doing some hanky-panky.
He got caught banging a trainee behind the
whatever.
Congress.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Sorry about that.
No, I'm like, say what?
Nobody wants that to get out.
No, oh my God. But that's the kind of,
right.
They go overseas. So members of the House and members of the Senate, they go on these delegations overseas, okay? And these people overseas are smart. And they get them, and they check you out. They study you before you come over. And they know you like Manhattans, right? Or they know you like a little bit of extra whiskey in your drink or whatever it is. You like this stuff. Or they find out that you got an extramarital affair going on back home and, you've been married to some same woman maybe for 25 years or whatever, and you got a little extramarital thing going on and, she's like 19, 18, 17 back home. And so they present that kind of thing to you while you're overseas, okay? And they nail you. And maybe you got a different way to look at people. Like you're looking at, maybe you're in the behavior where you're in that LGBTQ plus XYZ community. So they find out about that, and they will put those things in front of you while you're there.
Pictures.
And pictures, videos, and so most members, especially when they first come in, are not that smart. These people are not that smart.
Right.
They might have education from, somewhere else. They might have Harvard and Yale and, Princeton. It's all bullshit.
Right.
And there's a very few, like I love to see a lot of veterans. There's more and more veterans that are stepping up, and I love to see that because at least they have a little bit of, particularly the ones that I am aware of, they got a little bit of school of hard knocks, and they've been tested in a different way. And I do believe that their patriotic spirit will override the desire that these others will take the corrupt, and create this sort of corrupt activity. But there are a few that have fallen for it. So anyway, this is what happens. Right. So this is the reality. What I'm telling you and your audience, this is the shit that happens. And because frankly, this is the kind of stuff that our government tries to do against some people because the world of intelligence in the government against government, in the spying world is a very real thing. This is not Mission Impossible or or James Bond. This is real stuff. It's hard work and it's necessary. And if you're going to cross a line, you have to get permission to cross the line. If you're going to cross an ethical or a moral line, you got to get permission to do it. And if it's for the good of the country and it's being handled properly by the right people who are frankly honest and they track it but see that's like everything that I'm telling you, forget about that because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, now
it does not exist.
Having this information about what's going on overseas. Yeah. And I know the media, they have absolutely no integrity when they look at the Bidens and Hunter Biden and his business dealings overseas. There's always nothing to see here. There's nothing to do. Right. And Biden totally says, I don't deal with my son and his business.
Right.
He's got
bullshit.
to know.
Yeah, he definitely knows. And that's clear. That's all you read the various reports that have come out on this thing. It is insane.
That's a quick investigation.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. And you know what? If it was like a kid that had drug problems and that was his only problem, and
they're going to use it against him.
Yeah, and maybe that the drug problems led to marital problems or whatever. It's like there's so many things that we can kind of look at as a society and go, okay, get some help, right? But now we're not talking about that. Okay, we're talking about him going over to China and having a business partner who was the top Chinese intelligence official in China.
That's nuts.
And then having business relationships in Ukraine. This is why Ukraine is so important. This is why we got all this money flowing over to Ukraine, because we don't want people really in this country to find out exactly what Ukraine is, what's happening in Ukraine,
Really,
what's
what's
truly happening in Ukraine. Okay, so you have he's operating over there. Burisma is the name of the company. So Hunter's over there, no business at all being over there. He's got no background. He's got no experience, and he's getting paid millions of dollars. And then we find out that a certain percentage goes to the big guy, right? And this was provided
right there in the email,
provided in testimony to Congress, and and Hunter's getting an ungodly amount of money, not because he knows anything. It's because of the relationship with his father, and then the access that he could provide for those people, and that's proven. Their access into the White House, meetings that they had, it's there. So it's not like I'm making this stuff up.
Right. Then that's when Facebook, Twitter, and everybody starts censoring that story.
Right. Yeah. And then you're if you cover it, then they try to make Hunter out to be to just be this drug addicted guy.
Yeah, struggling with drugs, right?
You all seen it. And I don't know if you can clip.
He even wrote a book about it.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can clip this in. But I like the one that, and somebody, the Bidens, Jill and Joe are out in the porch there in the White House, the second floor. They're out there at some event that they're looking out. They got the family there, and Hunter's back there with I guess the wife or whatever, whoever the woman was. Yeah. They're carrying a baby, and he kind of hands the baby to her, and he does a quick like that, right? Like he goes behind like Joe and Jill. Have you seen that? You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, you got to go watch it. It's like,
okay. I'll put the clip right here.
Oh my God, it's like so. You watch that, and he goes like that, and he goes back, right? And I'm just reflecting what I saw, right?
Right.
So.
That is insane.
Unbelievable. And somebody sent that, and it was floating around the internet on social media. And you look at it and you think, okay, is this AI? Because I understand AI and how AI can be manipulated. This wasn't AI. They were there. And you look at it and you go, that son of a bitch is up there doing drugs right there in front of the world. And you kind of go, it's like, in a funny way, you kind of go, okay, man, I give the guy a lot of credit, but no. This is like for real. This is the presidency of the United States of America. This is about you guys, your audiences, their families, the future of our country. It's no more. This is no more about Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
This is about whether you want this country to continue to be, this beautiful constitutional republic where there's a free, there's a fair justice system. I mean, everybody knows the various communities that we have in our country that have been persecuted for so long, but now you're being persecuted for your political views,
right?
Which is different,
really weird.
And that's happened. That's it's really started to happen a number of years ago, but now it's gotten even worse. And so it's like, so a guy like me, I mean, I'm a Democrat going into the White House with Donald Trump. I served honorably in the military, a great career in the military, I mean, really, changed a lot of what we did to fight our enemies, and and I've never been a guy. I'm not a guy that's gonna, hey, look at me, pat me on the back. I'm just gonna work hard. I'm gonna outwork people, and I'm gonna go do the right thing. And the right thing sometimes is the harder choice to make.
Yeah.
And my message to people is that it's kind of like, and one of the things for this film, the question that I want people to ask when you watch this, and the same question that I would say to you guys is, what are you willing to fight for? Because if you're willing to fight for something, you're willing to die for something. And so you got to decide at some point in time in your life, like if you get censored, the Hodgetwins, geez, you guys are so amazing. And, but if somebody said,
they could do it overnight.
They could do it right now. And that's your livelihood. Let's say that's your livelihood, right? And that's how you put bread on the table for your families.
Right.
And you're censored. And it's like, and maybe you got, a month or two down the road that you can handle your mortgages and your car payments and your kids and everything else. But all of a sudden, and you're like, so now, do you fight You know, like your T-shirt, fight, 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 like Trump says, right? Your hat. Right. And, you know, do you fight for, you know, hey, this is not right, right? And it isn't right because you're not doing anything. You're practicing your ability, your freedom, you know, our First Amendment right to be able to say what we want to say. You know, so, you know, that's not like, because you guys aren't, you know, you're not attacking, you know, certain things that are real mean. You're just bringing out issues. And so I think that the American people, and your audience is a big one and a good one and a smart one, because of what you guys do. People have to understand that there is a choice right now that you have.
Right.
And like Trump or not, because you asked me earlier, you know, did I hold that? Was I, you know, have any animosities towards him? And I did for a while, you know, but I can see through it because I understand the risk that our country is facing. And the risk that our country is facing is that we will lose our country here if we're not careful. So that's my big message, is to think about what are you willing to fight for, and then get out there and do it. You know, get out there and serve in your community. Get out there and, you know, go to church, serve in your church. You know, don't just be a wallflower and let somebody else do it. And I know, I got that. There's so many people busy and you're working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, or whatever, raising kids. You know, then make sure that you're raising them right. I mean, put more effort into that. You know,
and to get the facts out of it, because watching that movie, that's a huge investment in our country.
Oh yeah,
in the future of our country.
It is. I mean, this is a very, very historic. It's about a little bit about history, but it's not like history, like boring.
Right.
This is a very historic.
It's not like the History Channel.
No, no. And so it's a very telling story, and the story basically is one. It's inspiring, but it's a story of survival.
Yeah, you survived
a
lot.
And here I am.
Yeah. You got a friend here that's specializes in psyops.
Right. Psyops. I love the way you say that.
Psyops.
Psyops.
Yes. It's that big, thick Negro tongue I got.
Yeah.
From the South.
Psyops. Psyops. Like something you find in the barbecue.
Right. Psyops. Psyop. Just sigh. Look here. Sigh up. Sigh ups. There you go. You almost sound like a white man.
I love it. Yeah, Boone Cutler, Sergeant retired Boone Cutler. And if we can maybe, you know, take a quick break and bring him on.
Bring him on.
And talk about 5th generation warfare, because that's the type of warfare that we're involved in right now.
You faced and Trump is facing right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey y'all, 3 red flags that show you might have poop stuck in your coat. Random stomach pains and abdominal cramps, like you on your period or something.
Oh man, think I'm on my period.
Uncontrollable leakage and episodes of diarrhea.
Oh man, that's horrible.
You got that mud butt.
Oh God.
You straining and struggling and pushing when you're on the toilet. You gonna get hemorrhoids like that. Trust me, I know. If you're going through any of this, we got the solution for you. Optimal Human, all-in-one nutritional drink, has over 90 ingredients. And it can help you with all kinds of issues. All kinds. Especially if your gut and your digestive system is out of whack. Yeah, make your ass great again. Yeah. Y'all need to go to optimalhuman.com/Hodgetwins, and now they letting you try it for free.
Free?
For free. You just gotta pay for shipping. Yeah. Try Optimal Human for free today. Yeah.
Oh, we got war veteran Boone Cutler, PSYOP expert. Right?
Gentlemen, it's good to be here. Speaking of PSYOP, man.
Yeah.
I watch you guys all the time, man.
Oh, thanks.
I got one question for you, because I haven't seen this answer. Do you mind?
Yeah.
You guys are some big boys, but your brothers.
What
were the fights like growing up?
You know what? To be honest,
because you look like you get along all the time, but I gotta think sometimes one of you got crossed with the other one.
Yeah, I think
like when we fight, we don't punch; we can strangle each other.
Yeah,
I don't want to mess up his face. It's like looking at yourself. Yeah, I can't hurt myself in the face. But so we can strangle each other. I'll kill you, you black mother. But you know what? We've been on this planet almost 50 years now. I could say we probably how many fights? Not fist fights, arguments.
Yeah.
Fought about
we
5.
got in a pretty good one in London, though.
Oh, yeah. I almost killed him in London.
Except for that one time.
Throwing suitcases at me.
Yeah.
We just arrived there. It was
From the 5th floor, right?
Yeah.
No?
No, Keith was pushing my buttons. We couldn't agree on what we was going to eat that night because we were trying to lose weight, was cutting.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm tired of this shit. We just
lost it.
Yeah. It was weird because we was going to do some comedy shows out there, and Customs stopped us.
Yeah, we didn't have jail.
Yeah, shut up. Let me do the talking. And we didn't have the correct visa to be in London.
Yeah.
So we were stuck in immigration for like hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
They let us out. So it was real stressful. Been flying for 6 hours. So we just got stressed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we fight, but not like fist fight. No black on black crime between us.
That's fantastic. I think a lot of people can learn from you. I really do.
Right.
I really
Especially the black community.
It's great being here because we can't say that.
Shit, I'll say it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy. I mean, I have 9 brothers and sisters, 5 brothers, 4 sisters, and like I said, we would fight terribly.
Oh yeah.
In our house because it was a small house.
Joe said you hung him out of the 2nd floor window.
I did, and I mean. But when you come outside, and you're together, it's like a great family, and that's important. That was important.
Yeah, I got an older brother. He retired Army.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got a master. I don't know.
Master Sergeant, probably.
E8 master.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
So we're here, and one of the things that we have, Boone and I, we wrote these books, and the first one there, Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, Introduction to 5GW, which is what we're involved in right now. This is what we're facing globally, and certainly here in the United States of America. And it's a combination of sort of the different types of warfare, and Boone can go into he goes into the rhyme and verse here and should, because he's a real expert. But I think probably for you is to tell the audience, because I'm not sure if, there may be some people that know you, but your background is really fascinating. Not only as a in where you are today, but what got you here?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great story, and it's one that I have to give all the credit to God for, because after I was discharged from the military, I was injured in Iraq. I spent 2 years at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, recovering from those injuries, and then I basically left there with a hefty addiction and continued to have a lot of injuries, and that was the thing. But so about 2 years after Walter Reed, I got off all the drugs, and when I got off all the drugs, I got into to veteran advocacy. And it was all spurred on by the fact that I was walking from where we were at the Malone House. I was walking over to the main hospital one day, really crying out to God, saying, why don't you do something about this? And because there was just so much turmoil, so much, just a lot of problems. I was there during the neglect scandal of 2007. I was there 2006 to 2008. So I was there for 2 years. And I just did that proverbial calling out to God, saying, do something about this. And literally, God, I feel like God called me a bitch. He was like, fuck you do something about it. I gave you the skills, make it happen.
Right.
And it was very directed. And then it was the whole thing, well, who am I? I'm just a sergeant. That would take like a colonel or somebody, who could have some sort of influence. I'm not the guy for that. And then I got off all the drugs, and it was like, no, I think I can be the guy for that. And because people just weren't speaking up in the way about the things that I knew were true. And so I ended up getting a job on a radio show. I released my first book and doing the veteran advocacy thing. And I started doing veteran advocacy in a really weird way, because I started talking about cannabis. And people were like, oh, you can't talk about cannabis. I'm like, bullshit, because, I did all the drugs. I did all the drugs that the medical science had to offer, that they said were going to make me better, that they were going to make me helpful.
Right.
It didn't help at all. And then after I checked myself into the VA, and I did two weeks in a lockdown unit, detoxing, coming off all the drugs. But then I got out of there, and I still couldn't sleep. And I was at work, and this young kid says to me, man, you look like hell. What's wrong? I said, I can't sleep. And he goes, why don't you smoke weed? And I was like, fuck you, dude. I don't smoke weed. I'm not one of those guys.
Right.
I'm just not that guy.
Right.
And then I went one more night, and I didn't sleep. And I'm laying there awake thinking, I've literally done everything medical science has to offer. I've taken every pill. I've done every modality. I've gotten up in the morning, watched the sunrise, and go down, reset my circadian rhythms. Right. I've done the PT. And still I can't sleep. So I'm like, what haven't I tried? I haven't tried cannabis. So the next day I told the KSA, he gave me some weed. He gave me some weed, and that night I slept 5 hours. And I hadn't slept 5 hours. I mean, no nightmares, no pain, straight 5 hours. I hadn't done that in almost 5 years. And I thought, this is some bullshit. right? And my background in psychological operations, I started looking at this whole thing. What made it? How did it become the way that it is? So demonized and everything else. Stigmatized. And then I learned about it. I was like, wait a minute. It's non-toxic to humans. It has the addiction rate of coffee.
Right.
You can't OD on it.
It's a freaking vegetable.
Okay. And literally, it's safer than grapes.
Right.
I mean, kids die every month drinking energy drinks.
Right.
But cannabis was somehow
Green grapes
illegal.
or red grapes?
Yeah, I think it's the red grapes. But it was safer than grapes because people choke on grapes. Nobody ever choked on weed. Well, they do, but you don't die from it. And this is some bullshit.
Right.
So the next day, I said, hey, I'm going to try it again. Maybe the last night, maybe I was exhausted. I was 3 days in no sleep. And I was willing to do anything not to go back to the VA and say, you were right, let me have my pills back. And that's what pushed me over that edge. So the next night, I smoked weed again. Slept for 5 hours. No pain, no nightmares. I was like, oh, I got to tell everybody.
Right.
I got to tell everybody. And that was really that first thing that I clawed onto with the veteran health and the advocacy. And then I wrote something called the Spartan Pledge, which was the anti-suicide campaign. It's just 2 lines. I will not take my own life by my own hand until I talk to my battle buddy first. My mission is to find a mission to help my warfighter family. You guys know by being in the military that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And then we get out of the military,
especially with us,
especially with you guys. Then you get out of the military, and it's the most amazing thing. And I really liken it to this: what do you call? You go in the military. You're 17, you're 18, you're 19 years old. You build a bond. You become trauma bonded with people. You go through experiences other people don't go through. That does sound like a family. And then you get out of the military. What do you call it when you're being separated from your family? You're orphaned.
right?
And so when guys get off active duty, it's like being orphaned. So what do you have to do? You have to reestablish. I basically started using the same skills about messaging and campaigns to start building community.
Right.
And so guys will start talking to each other and to take a pledge with each other, because we take pledges very seriously. It's not a joke. Right. So when a warfighter says to another warfighter, hey, bitch, when some shit goes down, you fucking call me. You call me. You do what you're going to do because you're a grown man. But you call me first, because don't leave me spinning around this earth wondering what the hell happened and me blaming myself because I wasn't there for you.
Right.
Give me the opportunity. So guys take the Spartan Pledge not for themselves, but they take it for the other guy. So the other guy knows what to do in that situation. So it's a battle drill. It's what to do when you don't know what to do.
Just the idea, the word separation, when they separate us from the military.
Yeah.
You're being, like, if you guys were separated,
Right.
You're separated from something. It's like you're like being left out there. You're just being pushed away, and you're being separated from something that you loved, right?
Right.
You love being with your battle buddies. You love being in the military. You loved your team, and now we're going to separate you. We use that word, separation, right?
Right.
Yep.
And it's the whole stigma of why we have an incredible level still of suicide rates for people that have been separated from the military.
Right.
And I think the numbers were always 22. I actually think we're higher than that now. But
Well, when they first came out with that number 22 a day, that was with only 8 states reporting. So that number could have easily been 3-4 times higher.
Yeah, I remember when I was getting out of the military, we had to take a class before we checked out because a lot of people suffer from depression.
right.
And going back to the civilian life. Just this morning, I was looking at TikTok where a guy was getting out of the army. He bursted into tears because he didn't know what to do. His family was gone. He didn't have no identity anymore.
It's an identity crisis. That's exactly right. And that's the thing that we don't understand. That's why you see guys. I have so much respect for a lot of the military apparel companies. Like the flag on your arm there. That came. People don't realize that, but that came from the military uniform. We transferred it over to T-shirts, and in past generations of war, guys would come home and they would still wear their fatigues or become fatigues. So they could identify. But nowadays, there's military apparel, T-shirts and hats and everything else. And so people can identify each other, and they still have that sense of identity. And I'll tell you, since 2010 and now, this community has truly built itself, has created an identity unlike before. Before you had the veteran service organizations, but now you've got, look at Irreverent Warriors, look at Vet TV, look at Black Rifle Coffee, look at Grunt Style. They have an entire industry that is there solely so veterans can stay connected. They can remain in the family. And I tell people all the time, hey, when you get out of the military, first thing you do is you get checked in, you find the veterans in your community, And because they're the ones who are gonna tell you, hey, this is the claim you need to file, or hey, this is the great doc at the VA, or hey, this is what's going on for your educational benefits, or hey, get down to the vet center and check in with them, once a month or so, just to keep your head straight and find out what's going on. That's your network. And so, you call it on active duty. It's a little bit different because you're there under contract. You're forced to be there. So you have to find that network when you get off active duty. But once that happens, once you reestablish community and you know what to do when you don't know what to do, the suicide rate goes like that.
Right. You need structure.
You need structure. And since then, I've been promoting stem cells, psychedelics. I think psychedelics are absolutely amazing.
We just started psychedelics. I sleep so good now.
I
get so much work done. My energy went up, and I sleep so good.
Oh, the microdosing. You're doing psilocybin microdosing?
Yeah, microdosing.
Absolutely love it, And, the floods, the ibogaine floods, getting guys unaddicted, stopping unretractable depression. And it's totally ridiculous. The VA was moving in that direction, and the FDA came out and said MDMA is addictive or potentially addictive. No. That is completely a lie. And if anybody goes back and they look what was happening with psychedelics, and I'm not talking hippie, dope-smoking love stuff, I'm talking the medical science. In the 60s, psychedelic medications were actually curing addictions, curing depression, alcoholism, curing it. And then somebody said, okay, what is the mechanism of this? Okay, well, it's reestablishing the serotonin in the brain. So instead of doing that, what did pharma do? Pharma comes out and goes, we're going to come out with these SSRIs to give you a little bit of serotonin. A little, so you have to take it every single day.
Makes you addicted.
But then you're addicted to it. Now you're stuck on it. It only worked for 30% of people when they tried it.
Right.
But the psychedelics, from the time I learned guys were going down to Mexico and figuring this out on their own, it became such a thing. And the United States, again, just like they did with cannabis, complete psychological operation, it is a lie. Right. As much as I hate the military-industrial complex, I can't stand the medical-industrial complex.
Right.
Pharmaceutical companies. There's some great stuff that's happened. It saved a lot of lives. But the manipulation of government that they do, which sets the laws and says you and you and you and me can't do something to save your own life that is non-toxic to humans and has the addiction rate of coffee, is total bullshit.
Right.
And that's just common sense. Now, if people want to go back and, tell me stories about what happened at Haight-Ashbury in 1968, okay, that's fine. That's that time and place. We're talking about doing things responsibly, but also having the tools to take responsibility for ourselves.
Right.
That's right. So that's my campaign for the veteran community.
Yeah, we just partnered. What's the name of that organization to help veterans get off smoking? There's other alternatives.
Smokelessvets.org.
Yes, smokelessvets.org. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and then we had a football player, and he told me about the psychedelics, and man, it increases your productivity, and it helps you sleep like a baby.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've gone, I've gone down to Mexico. I've sat in ceremony. I've done 9 grams of shrooms with DMT.
I'm not at that level yet.
Well, I'll tell you, I really wasn't either, and I didn't just jump into it.
He said
I did
shrooms.
Shrooms. Psilocybin. But what DMT is the only thing that creates neurogenesis. So myself, I was discharged from the military with 30% disability just for brain damage. And since I've done these types of treatments, that brain damage has now been assessed at 10%.
Now it rewires your brain.
It rewires your brain, gets rid of the trauma clusters, builds new neurons, builds your brain. Neurogenesis is a real thing.
Everything that he's talking about is not just for veterans.
No.
There's people that have had trauma from accidents or from, just from life, their lifestyle, whatever. And these are the kinds of things. And, the big pharmaceutical industry will not address this stuff because it'll take away from their ability to be able to addict you to something else.
There were times when they were giving me opiates. This is crazy. They were giving me opiates, and I'd look at it because they say how much was spent for this prescription.
Right.
I was on like 90 milligrams of morphine, 70 milligrams of OxyContin routinely, like daily, which is disgusting. It's crazy. But they were pushing it out there. And then
doctors was giving it to you.
I wasn't buying off the street. This was my VA prescription.
Right.
This was my VA prescription. It was one painkiller for the painkiller, and the other one was for breakthrough pain. What does breakthrough pain? It means you got a tolerance, so take some more shit.
Right.
That was the breakthrough pain. I encourage everybody to go watch that film, Dope Sick.
Yeah,
that series Dope Sick really lays it out. I wish they put a little bit more. Of course, for myself, they would have put a little bit more on what was happening in the veteran community, because that shit was sponsored in whole by the government to veterans of our country, in whole.
Still is.
And the stem cells. I'm a huge fan of stem cells. You know, stem cells.
We got a guy coming on tomorrow. We're actually going to go to Colombia. Yeah.
Oh, you going to BioAccelerator?
Yep. BioAccelerator.
I went down to Panama my first time because my heart gave out. I had 6 months to live. My wife, I was in a wheelchair. My wife had, and this was all secondary to the brain damage, but my wife, God bless her, you know, she was able to arrange some things, and my mother was involved, and people really pulled together around me, and it saved my life. I mean, I was in a wheelchair. Get this, I was in a wheelchair, and no babies were harmed during the stem cell treatment.
Right.
You know, this is from an umbilical cord that somebody's going to throw in the trash anyway.
Right.
Again, does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
So they were giving me these injections in my quads, in my shoulders, and a couple 6cc IVs. Within 2 days, remember, I was dying of heart failure, cardiomyopathy, and and stage 3 kidney disease. I was dying. I was in the death spiral. Could not walk when I got there. Within 2 days, I was able to leave the room, go downstairs, walk to the coffee shop, get my wife coffee, and bring it back to her. 2 days.
Stem cells.
Stem cells.
A lot of those type of treatments is banned in America.
Banned in America. I went down to CPI, Cellular Performance Institute down in Tijuana, about a year and a half ago with my wife. Got another round, and now they started working on some joint stuff. And, man, this is the deal. I mean, this is how we get healthy.
Right.
I mean, and we get to actually recover, not like, hey, here's another pill, get down to the pharmacy. How does it suck? You have to be on a prescription. You can't take a trip with your family. You're like, no, I can't do it that way because I got a refill coming in. You are bound and chained to that.
Right.
And you don't have to be.
Right. I got a friend, he could barely walk. He says now he can run.
Wow.
We all need to be telling these stories. We just all got to be telling these stories. And I think people are fed up. I think they get it. I don't think they're as susceptible as they used to be. Like, oh, the government's here to take care of you. You know, I don't think that. I don't think that's the predominant, emotion and feeling and sentiment
probably
right now.
The whole COVID thing, in a way, probably backfired a little bit.
Absolutely,
shine a light on.
It's just not. We just don't trust this thing anymore. This institution that's supposed to, keep us healthy. And then what we learn is that they're just hand over fist money.
Right.
When we and not making you healthy.
It's not making you healthy. When we wrote in between these two books, there's session 2. It's How to Fight Artificial Intelligence, and during the research on that, the amount of AI-driven psychological programming, the most AI-driven psychological programming worldwide, and what they did in Australia was criminal. I mean, that was some Mengele shit.
Right.
The amount of AI-driven psychological programming, because the real threat to AI right now is not the robots, it's not the machines, it's the AI-driven psychological programming. It's how everybody is being programmed with individual propaganda, the algorithms, all of this, assessing susceptibilities, changing how people think, changing the framework of thinking. There was so much focus. The areas we found the most use was COVID, the vax, transgender, and Marxist ideologies.
Yeah.
Those all went together. It was full-blown worldwide all at once. And it was all a bunch of bullshit. And look how much dissension it caused between individuals in their own families. Family members don't talk to each other. Oh, you're not vaxxed. You can't come over.
Yeah.
Or you're that. You don't believe. Oh, the election stuff, too. A ton of stuff. AI-driven psychological programming against election deniers.
Yeah. Right. I couldn't believe how, this last 3 or 4 years that's opened my eyes, how many people are just sheep. They believe whatever the TV tells them.
Exactly.
Or they turn off because at the end of the day, when people are confused, they do nothing. This is what happens. And that was really the impetus for General Flynn and I writing these books, is because you have military-style manuals, and you guys are in the military. The one thing you have in the military is continuity of message. Everybody knows the same information. Okay? Well, from there comes continuity of action. In the civilian space, people are confused. There's no continuity of message. Right. Everybody thinks that's the secret sauce, that's the secret sauce. And they kind of get it right in pieces. These books tell you all the pieces. So we can begin to at least to have a conversation because we're speaking the same language.
Right.
And that's the whole point of that.
And a lot of these particularly the first one, the introduction of 5GW, what we learned was that as this thing started to get more and more exposed, and the kinds of things because this is not about, family member against family member or neighbor against neighbor, although that's what they're trying to convince us that it is, because it's to really create this sense of divisiveness, And that's what the 4 components that Boone just talked about, finishing up with Marxism. I mean, the idea is to divide and then conquer, right? Very simple. And one of the things with 5GW, the introduction of 5GW, is to really lay out, what it is that in a very layman's language, very simple language, not over the top acronyms or nothing like that. Just say, very simple. Here's what we're up against. Here's the like military does, right? It's training a new kid to be an expert on something, right? Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say we're trying to get people to expert level, but I will tell you dig into Introduction to 5GW. You go through how to fight AI, and then the newest one is the role of the church, and you really think about it and put it in the perspective of where you are in your life, where you are in your community, where you are in your church, where you are in society, and you begin to realize, wow, this has all been one big lie, and now I have the tools to be able to stand up, understand it, and then do something about it, and that's really for me. Particularly the first one, the Introduction to 5GW, we kidded each other about having an exam at the end of every chapter.
Yeah, I saw that. That's neat.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it's just because it's like comprehension. And then people can kind of, how some people read. I'm not a reader from page 1 to page 100 or whatever. I kind of jump around a little bit. And one of the first things that I've talked to people about is go to the test, right? I mean, in the military, it's like, you teach the test. Go to the test and then go back in and dig in and see, and then go back to the test and take it, right? And see what kinds of impacts what you're reading about, what kinds of things are impacting your life right now, because your environment, where you're at right now, and all the stuff that Boone just talked about, his background and the things that he's been through. All of that stuff is happening to every single person. You don't have to be in the military to experience this shit. I mean, it's happening right now, and I think that what we need is we do need a common language because, like we talked about earlier, this is not about Democrats and Republicans, and this is about the direction that we are being pushed, and we're being pushed in that way by projection, by propaganda, by psychological operations, by
algorithm,
by influence in a world of artificial intelligence. Exactly. It's to make sure it's like, so we're sitting here right now. My phone is connected to the internet.
It's listening to us.
I'll walk out here. You were telling the story the other day about whatever it was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I give this example, and every time I say it, people go, yeah. But they don't realize everybody else is going through the same thing. Okay, which is the sign of a well-planned psychological operation. You think it's only happened to you, and you don't know this guy's going through it too. How many times you've been sitting good example? You're sitting in the car with your spouse. You're driving home. Okay, just you and your spouse in the car. Your spouse says, "Hey, we really need some laundry detergent."
Right.
And by the time you get to the driveway, there's an advertisement for laundry detergent.
Right.
Now, if they can do that for products and services, what makes people think they can't do that with ideology?
Right.
Because they do. They absolutely do.
Your algorithm on your IG, your Facebook. Right. I forget the news broadcast TikTok, I was looking at, the talk show that I was looking at, but they said the growth of LGBTQ kids and just people in general has just exploded over the last 10 years. A lot of people, a majority of the population identifies as being some type of LGBTQ, which is crazy.
In a certain demographic, in a certain age group. I believe that. I mean,
it was Bill Maher's show. It's like these kids these people are being manufactured.
People don't. I'm sorry, sir.
No, go ahead.
People don't realize that when we talk about generations of war, it's like talking about generations of people, and the generations of people you're talking about are being affected by it because they don't understand the generations of war and how people are affected. In the first generation, it's all based on technology. Just like with people, we've got Gen Z, we've got millennials, Gen Xers, whatever. In war, we have generations of war based on technology. So the first generation of war was pre-gunpowder. We're talking like Braveheart, guys running out in fields and beating the hell out of each other, stabbing each other. Second generation of war is post-gunpowder. Now you're seeing the guys on the same fields, except they're shooting at each other. We get in a third generation of war. Now you're starting to see trench warfare. You're starting to see the lethality of war grow very dramatically with the use of vehicles, airplanes, tanks. Now you're starting to see long-range artillery. At the end of the third generation of war, we're starting to see atomic weapons, very, very lethal. Fourth generation of war, now it's state and non-state actors working based on ideology, not exactly on what the state wants, but what an ideology wants. You see, like terrorism.
Right.
In the fifth generation of war, which is exactly what we're talking about, to break down a society, to break down the traditions of a society, is solely based on the cognitive battle space. It's what's going on up here. And that's where we're at right now, 24/7. And in order to conduct a psychological operation, the first thing you have to have is access to your target audience. Everybody's got access.
Right.
It doesn't matter what NGO, what non-state actor, everybody has access to you now. They can speak your language the way you want to hear it.
Right.
And the next thing is susceptibility. To identify someone or a group's susceptibilities. These machines, you tell these machines every single day what you're susceptible to every time you click like or share or make a comment that has a sentiment analysis. That's why these machines are used that way.
Right.
Because we are in the fifth generation of war, quickly going to the sixth generation of war, which gets really scary because then everything is controlled by AI and autonomous drones.
Yeah. Social credit score.
Social credit score.
Yeah.
Look, everybody, inflation is out of control, and this problem's only going to get worse.
The value of silver and gold has been steadily rising, while the value of the American dollar has been falling.
Purplebar.com is changing the game, making it easy for all of us to protect our financial futures. The bars are perforated so they can easily break apart and can be conveniently exchanged. Go to purplebar.com and use promo code Hodgetwins and you get 5% off gold bars. And you get 10% off silver bars. Yeah.
I mean, I was telling a story today because as I travel through the airport, and this happens in China all the time, when I went to the airport, whatever it was, Thursday or Friday, to fly out here, and I went through the TSA line, so I'm a TSA cleared guy. So I go there and I give the guy my ID card, and he says, slide it in the machine here. And he goes, look into the camera, and he goes, make sure you smile. So I didn't smile. I just, because I'm like, I'm not going to smile this morning, right? It's just maybe I'm being a smart ass, but I wasn't going to smile.
Right.
Card comes out. He goes, he's behind me. He's behind the machine, right? And he goes, it didn't work. Slide it again. He says, hand me the card. He gets it. He wipes it off. He says, here, put it back in the machine. And he goes, look into the camera and try to smile this time. I didn't smile, and it didn't work. Right? In China, they have a system where if you don't smile, you can't leave your neighborhood.
Wow. Okay,
and it's all about social credit scores and the way that they operate, because they want, it's like a phoniness that they want the society to be in. Like everybody's happy, I'm happy, right? So
like the Lego movie,
when that happened,
everybody's happy.
When that happened to me the other day, so the final thing was, I never did smile in front of the camera. So the guy takes the card and he goes, I'm going to have to call my supervisor, and I'm standing there like, looking like a white man trying to get to the airport, right?
Right.
And
that was your first mistake, right?
Yeah,
there.
right. And I'm thinking to myself, this is wild. I wanted to see the process, right? So the young kid comes over who was half the age of the guy behind the screen.
Supervisor.
Yeah, and he's got a kind of a beard, sort of looks like yours, and and he takes my ID card. He says, let me have it. He goes like this, and he looks like this. And he goes, okay, he's okay. And I'm thinking to myself, so I need to go through that, right? Because this guy who was probably 24 years old, hasn't maybe the only job he's ever had. I don't even know. He could have been homeless and come off because I look at if they're in uniform, his uniform needed to be pressed. He needed to be squared away. At least put an iron to that thing,
Right.
It was a mess. It looked like he had slept in that shirt. And I'm thinking to myself, because I didn't smile to that camera. That's what's happening in our country right now, because that's the governments that's doing this. So, next time you go through something like that, watch what our government is causing us to do, right? Because they want everybody to be happy, right?
Now, I'm going to guess on those machines, they get sentiment analysis by the things you type, by how you move your phone, by the things you listen to. They also get it from your facial expressions. So I'm guessing, I don't have any special knowledge about that particular technology, but I know that the machines do. They pick up your sentiment analysis by your facial expression. I'm guessing if I'm running an airport and I want to make sure some guy doesn't come through who's like really, really mad,
right?
That programming is going to be in the system. So smiling is going to get you through faster because the sentiment analysis is this person is in a good mood, everything's fine, they're not showing any signs.
You know, and like, don't they think that the bad guys will figure this shit out? I mean,
I think they just did because I said it on air.
Yeah,
but
it's just, you know,
bad,
it's like
TSA.
it is a way to influence, and you know, and these are just different examples, and I'm sure your audience will go, yeah, man, this happened to me, or this happened to me, or you know, I said this, and just try it because you're going to see that it actually occurs. And there's plenty of data on this. When you go into a store like a big box store, or Walmart or something like that, when you're going down the lanes, if you're following your phone is going to pop up with stuff in that area that you're in.
Oh, I see.
Okay?
Yeah.
And because you can't protect your privacy anymore. You can't protect your data. You can't protect what you're purchasing is. You just can't. Everything is known about you, and the big industries, the big corporate industries, they're gathering all that data to try to continue to influence you. Well, the government does the same thing, and the government is involved in this now, and the government has been involved in this for a long time. So we're in one of these places where when we talk about these ideas that we present in these books, I mean, it's basically to educate people,
right,
to start thinking about, okay, how do you live in this environment?
Right.
Because it's kind of like, I learned a long time ago, be for it, whatever it is. Well, you better start, you don't have to accept it or you have to live the way you want to live, and I want people to do that. But you're going to have to be we're going to be in an environment here where the world of artificial intelligence, I mean, machine learning has been around for a long time.
Right.
Now it's this idea of artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is another component of this stuff, and it's mind blowing.
You know, it's crazy. I was overseas in London, and I went in this little convenience store in the airport. You didn't have to pull out your ID or anything. You just go in, pick up the items, and walk out. It scans your information, everything you picked up,
credit card and everything.
You don't have to go through a register.
Yeah.
Right in your pocket.
Right in my pocket. Yeah.
It's amazing the things that are going on. And if people don't, these books are not political, they're doctrine.
Right.
It's doctrine and technique, and people can apply it how they wish.
Right.
But at least they're not blind to actual, like we talk about statecraft, we talk about sharp power, hard power, soft power, we talk about the levers of power, the dime framework, things that I just said that 90% of your audience goes, what is that? But the fact that you don't know that just makes you a victim to all those things I just said.
Right.
So we have to bring this knowledge that people General Flynn, more than 30 years, the highest levels of intelligence. Myself, I worked the ground game with psychological operations, face-to-face. That was my game. So together, we put together a pretty good product. Him from the 30,000-foot view and me from the eye-to-eye level view. You're not going to find anything like this anywhere else that really peels back that curtain and says, hey, this is where the strings are.
Right. Right.
Hey, what do you guys think about this upcoming election with Kamala and Trump?
Personally, I am very fascinated at what the Democrat convention that's coming up here next week what the outcome will be. I'm not convinced that she's going to be the anointed one yet.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm not yet.
It will go to what y'all been saying about about the algorithm, how media can make a nobody into somebody, because she was the most unpopular candidate they had. If she wins that election, just goes to show you, and it backs up everything you gentlemen brought us today, how powerful the media is, how powerful AI.
So assume we're going to have the election,
Yeah.
because I can see a scenario where there's not an election.
Wow. Okay.
But assume we have an election, and she's the candidate for the Democrat ticket versus Trump on the Republican ticket. I mean, if you just look at just human indicators, right? Just looking at the differences of what you see when they interact with people, it's a no-brainer. And you kind of go, well, there's no way that, that this person, the type of person she is, the type of audiences that she's able to gain, and which is not much. They're going to make it sound like she's got tens of thousands of people showing up. The very first one was a concert. When the concert was, so come
That
on.
was working and everything.
Right. So, you know,
I was sure
so
ashamed of my people.
just those visible things, you know. But so people can be convinced, especially, you know, if they've already begun working on the children, which they've been working on. I mean, the over sexualization of children is just one part of all this, but also the manipulation of what children and young adults begin to believe, and then you get into that 18 to 20 or 18 to 30-year-old, 18 to 35-year-old category, and you look at that and you kind of go, wow, man, you know, this stuff resonates with these people. And most of them, you know, I love the man on the street interviews where somebody shows show a picture of like George Washington and a picture of Joe Biden, and they go, you know, pick the, you know, who's, you know, do you know which one is Joe Biden? And like some of them go, is this the guy, George Washington, right? I mean, it's like because, you know, there is a lack of education, you know, in that, and also just a laziness and a complacency because people just don't give a shit.
Right.
But I like to, if I could sprinkle fairy dust and say, let's do this one time. Let's have a fair election, you know, ID cards, paper ballots, one day, you know, make it a holiday if you have to, but one day let's just see what a fair election outcome would be, and let's do it like that. But I don't believe we have that system, and I don't believe we have that system in place. So no matter what happens, you know, whoever wins, either side, because we're so divided right now, is going to say that they ripped us off or they did something. We're just there. We're at that point now. The American people have lost trust and confidence in government. I mean, my concern is the loss of trust in our military, and and I believe that the trust still exists in the rank and file, you know, in the sergeants and the first sergeants and the young officers. That's where I believe the American people still trust, but they don't trust the leadership anymore.
Right.
They don't. That's factual now. I mean, they're you know, looking at surveys and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, your thoughts on the election?
Well, I the same thing. You know, will we even have one? You know, will we have one? Will Kamala actually be the anointed one? Is Trump going to do this from jail?
Right.
You know, these are all factors, and with the sentencing coming up, you know, if I'm red teaming this thing and I'm on the other side, would I let the guy not go to jail? No, I'd make sure he went to jail.
Right.
You know, it's going to be disruption. So either to or fro, we're going to see disruption. And the reason we wrote this one, how, you know, the role of the church, wasn't because we're trying to preach. It has nothing to do with that. It's about organizing and mobilizing 2.6 billion Christians around the world, specifically because of this campaign that has to do with Christian nationalists and how that is demonized.
Right.
And Christians need to know how to navigate that, because if you do the wrong thing and create some optics that launch some sort of psi act, well, then the entire campaign gets focused on that group and tears things down. So we've been seeing this Christian nationalist demonization campaign. And so we decide, hey, and this is going to spin up. It's going to go further and further and further. And I think the election is going to have something to do with it, especially if they go, those people are the ones that really cheated, those Christian nationalists, that MAGA group.
They may even start coming after people.
They may actually
arresting.
do that.
I mean, you know, seriously.
The worst thing we can do is make it worse, because we are wrong. We are provoked in such a way that we make it worse. There's a smart way to handle those situations, a very, very smart way, and it's done by doctrine. So this teaches the doctrine for that community so they can navigate it, so we actually don't make the situation worse. We can make it better with the numbers and with just a little bit of training.
Yeah, like January 6th, it made things worse.
January 6th made things tremendously worse. Yeah. And now what? People are afraid to assemble if they're conservative. Afraid to assemble. I see it all the time. You see people saying, you know, well, how can this happen? Well, now that does happen. So, but where you do see the impact indicators, General Flynn and I traveled this country twice together during his movie tour. We stopped every 200 miles to talk to people because we had to get gas, and they would come to us, they would talk. It is amazing, and this is the good thing that I can report to you, how many people across America, didn't matter what state, are on the same sheet of music. They're talking about the same things we're talking about right now. But they don't know that their neighbors are talking about the same thing because they're siloed in these filter bubbles, these echo chambers. We got to start talking to each other. I recommend everybody, remember potlucks? When was the last time you saw a potluck?
Yeah.
Don't do it anymore.
Right.
Have a potluck with all your neighbors, except one caveat. Tell everybody to leave their phone in the car. So we have to talk to each other again, reestablishing human contact. What I can tell you from that tour is every 200 miles for 15,000 miles, we talk to people. They're all on the same sheet of music. That's good. That's an impact indicator if I'm collecting atmospherics. The other thing I know is look how, yes, people may not assemble, but look what the people did to Bud Light.
Right.
Look what the people did to Target. Okay, that's a massive impact indicator that this is the majority audience. We're the big dog on the porch, but we don't know we're the big dog on the porch. We are the big dog. Start acting like it. Take charge. Make sure that you understand who the people are in your neighborhood. Work with them. Start building your reliability networks, your sustainability platforms, all the things we need to do to remove those susceptibilities that the government will use to come down on us if we do push back. It's about strength. It's not about guns. It's not about screaming Wolverines and shooting and everything else.
Right.
That's not what it's about, because the real work is done in the political sphere.
Right.
The real work.
And it's a harder work, actually.
It's very much harder.
Yeah,
And you have to learn it, and this is how you learn it.
On that note, how can everybody find y'all?
They can go to the books or the film. They can go to flynnmovie.com.
Flynnmovie.com.
Flynnmovie.com is probably the best website to go to. There's generalflynn.com, but flynnmovie.com, and all the, and we have actually from a really good deal perspective, depending on, if you just, all you got to do is look down at flynnmovie.com and you'll see the either ways to get the film, and I recommend the cheapest way to get it is to stream it. And I think it's like $4, and then we have really good deals on the books. If you bundle them, I mean, it's just unbelievable deals to get all three or to get one. Of course, if you buy all three, you get them much cheaper. And it's a necessary thing for us to do to get the word out. And frankly, these are all self-published. And there's you're not going to get publishing companies to publish these,
Right.
just because it's like
Because they part of the system.
well, because
That's
part
right.
they're
That's
part of it. They're part of that corporate level system that we're calling out in these books. So they're self-published. We hustle, and they're really well done. And Boone has really, his role in these really, because I remember the day we were going through an office area. I was in an office area where we worked in Florida together, and he was sitting there. We started to talk about this, and he's got like a piece of some of the stuff that he was writing, kind of a manuscript and maybe an outline. And we started talking about this. Yeah, we started to really talk about our backgrounds again and about what was happening in the country. And we go, let's do this. Let's put this together. And then the first one, Introduction to 5GW, became a bestseller, self-published, and hustling it, and because people read it, and a lot of churches started to take it and then train in their churches, which we loved.
That's great,
It was
Homeschoolers,
really
too.
And homeschoolers too.
A lot of homeschoolers that use the books.
And then once we saw that happening and this need, and getting around and talking to people, then it was like, okay, this idea of artificial intelligence, and it's not just what is AI and it's some technical thing and people it's not, but it's how to fight artificial intelligence. It's how do you operate in this world of AI? And that actually, the funny thing is, the pastors' conference that we did last week, that more than the role of the church, because I think maybe they figured, well, I already know the Bible, and so they didn't really know what's in the role of the church. But once they read that book, they were buying up the How to Fight AI because of what's happening in the church.
Right.
And then, because the most recent one that just came out in May, I think, is the role of the church, and it's really not about, the church. It's about the role of where is the strength of community, where does community occur, and that's why during COVID, one of the first things that the government did was they shut churches down.
Shut them down.
Because churches are places where, frankly, where the revolution was strengthened. Because when people got together, they'd get together where? In a church with a pastor, and they could talk about what's going on in a small group way.
Right.
And that's why what the government didn't want to have happen. They didn't want people to go, this is not right. This is not right. So the idea of the role of the church is the strengthening of community And the large in this country, and I've said this and I'll say it here, that you can't be the president of the United States without winning the Christian vote, frankly, without winning the Catholic vote, because of the percentages and the demographics and what we have in this country. You just can't. So it's the idea of, whoever you decide that you want, but you got to think about where you fit into that, how you fit into that as a member of a community. And what we're trying to do, I think, with these, I think the big picture from my perspective is really to bring people together and to figure out, use these to bring yourselves and your communities together. And what I loved was the fact that when we first started seeing the introduction of 5GW and people were actually using it as a training tool, citizens, right, didn't have any military experience. They're using it as a training tool to bring other people together and teaching. And that's the beauty of why those exams at the end of every chapter, one of the pieces of feedback is we've already got the tests. You guys have already made it for us. So it makes it easier to sit there and teach somebody about these issues that we're talking about. And then you have an exam. I mean, we've had you've actually done some of the training. You've done some of the training.
I've been asked to come out and go to different places, and people want to go. They want to go sight and verse and understand, what they can do and get a little bit deeper, because obviously session 1 is the introduction, and then as it goes further, and the session 3, how is that how to organize, how to mobilize. That came out of all the feedback when people were saying, "What's next? How do I make the local action to have national impact? How do I make that happen?" And that shows you how to make that happen. And as far as how to find me, you can find me anywhere. I mean, I'm on social media like everybody else. But I want everybody to go to flynnmovie.com/Hodgetwins to get these books.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
And I, this was great coming out to the West Coast and you guys reaching out and allowing us to come on here with your audience.
Thank you very much.
And this is awesome. I mean, you guys are awesome. And I was kidding with you, and I wasn't kidding. Before we came on about in the 4 or 5 events we just did. When I said, "Oh yeah, we're going to finish up by going to see the Hodgetwins up in Vegas." I mean, you guys have probably a larger audience than you actually know.
Right.
And you're just what the American people are hungry for is authenticity.
Yep.
Right.
It's just people being authentic in themselves, not fake, not phony, honest, and authentic. And I think it's we could say hungry for leadership and all that, and I think that's true too. But I think people are just authentic leaders. I mean, the best people I ever worked around, in the military or what I saw as a kid with coaches and playing sports and stuff, was those coaches that they were hard, but they were fair, and they meant what they said. And and they also demonstrated by example. They were right there with you doing stuff. So
right.
I think that's what America does need right now. And your voices they matter so much. Right. And so I just we're thankful to be able to get up here and spend some time with you and appreciate what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Thank you, brother. Very good.
It's a pleasure having y'all on.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All the way.
Thank you. Oh yeah, let me give you. I gotta give you a salute. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you.
All right.